this is a force which creates the optimum form of whatever it is that it needs to survive itself or propagate itself. Maybe the real key to consciousness is propagation.
Key to consciousness is propagation. What does it mean?
As in, to perpetuate yourself. To survive
Mm.
doesn't necessarily mean to survive as an individual. So if you're like thinking, I am an individual and I must survive, that's kind of where a lot of the consciousness debate happens. Like, I am me and I need to continue to be me. But actually, we're not just we're our offspring. And there's a certain sense of your offspring are then adapting to their environment. And that's how life works, of course. So maybe that's one of the factors we need to give to AI to be conscious in our previous discussion of what factors it would need to be considered as conscious. That sense of self-propagation. It has offspring. The offspring are better or worse in their environment. And then that creates adaptation, right? So some of them are better suited. Some of them are worse. It's like evolution by natural selection for an AI. And that gives it drivers. It gives it, bacteria do this. Humans do this. It's one of the things that drives life. Maybe this is getting a little woolly.
I just think that this doesn't go back to the insects example. Just because
Yeah.
insects feel threat and they have a set of biological goals embedded in their DNA doesn't mean that they are conscious.
I don't mean that they're conscious, but consciousness would be the idea that there's a sense of self.
And even the sense of self, I mean, from some of the philosophers from the 90s, again, Daniel Dennett and Thomas Metzinger, we know that the sense of self doesn't actually exist, but is the brain that because it is
There's something
too
we should talk
complex.
about a little more. So why don't you, if I say that a sense of self is one of the main things that seems to keep popping up and everything else seems to be, discardable, or you can imagine a conscious being without them if you try hard enough. But the one thing that seems to be consistent is this sense of self. But you were telling me earlier that maybe there isn't actually such a thing as a sense of self after all, and the whole thing might collapse.
Yeah. Again, in the late 90s and early 2000s, Daniel Dennett and Thomas Metzinger, they hypothesized that there is no sense of selfhood, right? But because the human body is such a complex set of muscles, receptor neurons operating at the same time, then the brain, to simplify the process, makes us believe that there is only one entity, that it's in control of everything. And so we have this perception that we are a little brain inside our body, and that is now controlling your movements. It's perceiving different emotions, different inputs. But the truth is that we are multiple sets of systems combined together. But for simplicity, our brain is just tricking us into thinking that we're just one entity inside the same body. And again, this might just be a simple philosophical framework to explain us how our consciousness works.
Or it could be a way to completely make the idea of consciousness completely redundant as a completely anthropomorphized illusion that doesn't really exist at all in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, this is pretty much what they're saying, that there is no self.
Yeah, which means that the fact that AI doesn't have that sense of self is completely meaningless. Well, then, that means that maybe we should give it rights and morals and everything we just said.
Mhm.
The subject is so incredibly deep and difficult to wrap your head around that I think we could maybe go around in circles and convince ourselves either way over and over again. But perhaps for today, we'll leave that discussion and see if anybody in the comments has any other takes on this.